I want to endorse him publicly for those who are on this chat to give him the necessary support.
So we begin with a lease agreement. So on May the 1st, 2024, Roots Foundation was granted a 5-year lease for the state-owned property GEZ38, which is the Tunapuna Old Post Office at Railway Road in Tunapuna. This lease was facilitated by the Property and Real Estate Services Division, also called PRESD, under the Ministry of Public Administration, which is now the Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence. And on May the 5th this year, the lease was retroactively extended to 10 years. So at present, we now in a possession of a 10-year lease of the Tunapuna Old Post Office. And we'll hear a bit more about the process later on in our presentation. And we want to welcome the representatives from PRESD who are here with us this evening. So to your left of your screen, you will see an image of the old post office. And this was an earlier photo, because you can see the signed post office here. This tree is not here again. And this short building here is now the export center, export TT center. It's a taller building, right? The one to the right of the screen is a more modern photo of the post office. Well, this curtain here, the curtain is still there up to today, right? So this building was established on the 31st of January, 1889. Heritage recognition. In October the 23rd, 2024, the Tunapuna Old Post Office was officially added to the National Trust Heritage Asset Inventory. So we nominated the building to the National Trust and it was included in the Heritage Asset Inventory. Recognized for its historical and cultural significance. Designated as a heritage asset of importance. Approved unanimously by the National Trust Landmarks Subcommittee. And this affirms the site's national value and need for preservation. So we want to acknowledge the representatives of the National Trust who are here this evening. And we'll hear a little more about the process in terms of how a site or a building or can be nominated to the National Heritage Asset Inventory. These are more modern photos of the post office, and you all may be more familiar with this one to the left. When you're going down the priority bus route, you will see this building in clear view. This here is the bus terminus. And this here, well, you see the window still open, but the curtain, I asked them to put in the curtain. So you're not seeing the curtain here again. So these are more modern photos of the building. In April the 30th this year, the Heritage Conservation Project, HTAP project, TPR2025-001 by the Oral Tradition Roots Foundation has been officially endorsed under the Heritage Tax Allowance Program, HTAP. And if you pay attention to this, our registration number, 001. It was approved by the National Trust Landmarks Subcommittee. The project which we submitted is the adaptive reuse of the Tunapuna Old Post Office as Roots Cafe TT, Creative Academy for edutainment. This recognizes Roots Foundation's commitment to heritage preservation through innovation. And as I mentioned, our registration number is TPR2025-001. And similar to getting the building nominated to the Inventory of Heritage Assets, to get this registration or this approval, we had to submit an application form A, submit a utility bill, or in our case, the lease agreement, a brief restoration or conservation project description, and 3 recent photographs, right? They will do a project assessment, and then they will endorse the project as they did with us. For companies willing to support, in this case, the adaptive use of the Tunapuna Old Post Office, right? There are 2 forms. Form B1, which is the intention to support the project, and this can be either in cash, goods, or services. And when that is done and the work is completed, you submit Form B2, which is expenditure report, and a signed letter from us saying, yes, the work was done, this was done, with all the receipts. There is also a retroactive form, Form R, because if work was done, in this case, the Tunapuna Old Post Office, anytime between January the 1st, 2022 and January the 31st, 2025, you could also claim. And in our case, last year, between May the 1st and December, we spent approximately over $64,000 on the building. So we submitted a form to the National Trust, and this is our registration number, R2025-001. What is the Heritage Tax Allowance Incentive? It's a fiscal incentive introduced by the Ministry of Planning and Development, which is now the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, in collaboration with the National Trust of Trinidad and Tobago. The incentive is 150% tax allowance, up to $1 million TT annually for companies investing in preservation, rehabilitation, restoration, reconstruction, and in our case, adaptive reuse of a heritage asset. They align with the economical, social, and governance goals, ESG, and the corporate social responsibility strategies of any company. And as I said, later on you will get to learn a little more about this 150% tax allowance from the representative from the National Trust, the Landmarks Subcommittee.
My name is Ashley John Morris. I serve as a Senior Heritage Preservation and Research Officer at the National Trust of Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm also an archaeologist by training. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for Mr. Sawazi for your invitation to this forum. We want to speak about the Heritage Tax Allowance Program as much as possible, and you've given us a platform to do so, so thank you so much. Which simply is a fiscal incentive designed to stimulate public sector investment into conservation and preservation projects for Trinidad and Tobago's tangible cultural heritage assets. All right? So this represents not just a financial opportunity, but a new era in the way we engage the private sector, heritage property owners like owners and occupiers like the Roots Foundation, and the wider community in a shared mission to protect and revitalize our national treasures. And definitely the Tunapuna Old Post Office is a national treasure and we want to preserve. So the objective of HTAP simply is the encouragement of private sector participation to stimulate corporate investment in the preservation and conservation of these assets, the preservation itself of the heritage asset, and the promotion of heritage tourism, but not just heritage tourism, but other economic activities that are downstream from heritage preservation. And of course, that includes not just economic activities, but social activities as well that the Roots Foundation has identified in their previous presentation. And while the Heritage Tax Allowance Program offers significant benefits for preservation and community revitalization, we also recognize that it must be carefully managed to prevent unintended consequences. Without appropriate safeguards, there's always a risk that financial incentives could inadvertently encourage projects that prioritize tax benefits over authentic conservation outcomes, and there is a potential for inappropriate alterations, poorly executed restorations, or even the neglect of intangible values associated with the site in favor of cosmetic or superficial works. Additionally, we must be mindful that not every property or every project automatically serves the public interest. It is our responsibility to ensure that the pursuit of investment remains firmly anchored in the best conservation practices, cultural sensitivity, and principles of sustainable heritage management. So we understand that this is something very good for heritage preservation in Trinidad, but there may be pitfalls. So in order to make sure that we lessen those pitfalls or address those pitfalls, we've set up a parallel system. On one side, we have heritage asset owners and occupants, like the Roots Foundation, and on the other side, we have registered companies. The eligibility for the program. The heritage, we have aimed to make the application process for both property owners or occupiers and registered companies as seamless and as straightforward as possible. For projects to be eligible, the heritage asset upon which the project work is to be conducted must be included on our heritage asset inventory, and I'm happy to say that Roots Foundation, as Mr. Sawazi stated, is on our heritage asset inventory. Further, the project itself must outline a viable conservation effort, whether it be restoration, stabilization, preservation, or adaptive reuse in this case. And this would be vetted by our landmark subcommittee, which will look at the endorsement of such projects. Right, so that is on the property owner's side or the property side. On the company side, very simple. The company must be registered within the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and that is the major stipulation, and in fact, one of the only stipulations or criteria for inclusion in this program. So this is just a slide of the heritage asset inventory. So we have over 400 over 400 sites noted all over Trinidad, natural sites, monuments, built heritage. That all makes up our inventory. And of course, as I said, the Tunapuna Old Post Office is one of these sites. Right. Each tab, when we speak of the Heritage Tax Allowance Program, it is important to be clear. This program is not only for grand iconic monuments and those physical reminders of our collective history that may be centuries old. While we certainly cherish and prioritize these treasures, the program is also embraces the rich variety of heritage that shapes our everyday life. It is equally for recognized gingerbread houses of Woodbrook, Piccadilly Street, lovingly maintained by elders in the community. We try to include all forms of tangible heritage in this program. Right, so now that you're inspired, hopefully, and enthused by the program and the benefits on both the property owners and the company side, I wouldn't spend too long on this because Mr. Sawazi made mention of the process on the property owner's side, but I want to drill down specifically into the company side of this. So Once our project is endorsed by the National Trust, we give a letter of endorsement to the property owner, and also we publicize that the project has been endorsed and is in fact an HTAP project. It becomes a HTAP project. And I'm very happy to see that the Tunapuna Old Post Office Adaptive Reuse Project is the very first application, successful application to come through this program. So, Mr. Sawazi and all those who are involved, I want you to give yourselves a round of applause, because we're very happy to have you as the first applicant, successful applicant. Right? So that part of the process is done. We have an endorsed HTAP project at the Tunapuna Old Post Office. So now what's next? Next step is for companies that want to avail themselves of the tax incentive to support the adaptive reuse project that is happening in Tunapuna. To do this, companies have to, well, first identify, hopefully you would identify this project as something you want to endorse. And you do this by submitting Form B1, which is the intentions to support form. It must be completed by the company to indicate its intention to support the project. The things that you would need to fill out this form is a certificate of incorporation. You have to name the HTAP project and the code. Mr. Sawazi shared the project code with you this evening, and also just an estimated value of your intended contribution. Once that is done and you submit that to the National Trust, we ensure that you understand all the rules and regulations surrounding the program. We ensure that you understand that there's a limit on the support that is incentivized, but there's no limit on your support. So up to $1 million per calendar year is the support that is incentivized, but please don't allow that to stop you from supporting the project further or projects further, right? And once the support is received by the property owner, then the company will submit Form B2, which is the expenditure reporting form. And on this form, you will need to include with this form, a signed letter from the property owner or occupier confirming receipt of the support, and also the accompanying receipts of this support. So it needs to be very clear the monetary value of your support. And upon verification, the National Trust will submit a request to the minister responsible for the National Trust. When this was created, it was called the Ministry of Planning and Development, no more, but that's what it is here. And we submit this request for the certification of the expenditure reported by the company. Now, there's also a retroactive process that Mr. Sawazi hinted at, whereby we understand that this program or the law that governs this program was on the books since 2022. So we understand in the general activity of heritage preservation, there have been companies that have supported heritage preservation efforts, and we want to retroactively incentivize those contributions. There is a limit to this, of course. The projects that we can cover under the retroactive process, the properties that those projects were conducted with must be on our heritage asset inventory, which you saw. But the eligible expenses incurred between January 1st, 2022 and January 31st of this year can be claimed retroactively. And I can go into that a little bit more, I guess, in the question and answer segment if you so desire. So once the minister is okay with the work that was done on the National Trust side, and the minister accepts the endorsement and accepts that the expenditure was incurred, then a certificate can be submitted to the company, and this certificate will be used by the company at the Board of Inland Revenue to receive a tax allowance of 150% of the actual expenditure incurred, of course, up to $1 million per calendar year. Yes? Right. Now to preempt some of the questions you may already have. The first, yes, multiple companies can support the same HTAP project. Heritage conservation projects often require different types of assistance, whether it is funding, materials, or technical expertise. We understand that, right? So multiple companies can support the same HTAP project. It is also entirely possible, even encouraged, for several companies to come together to support a single project. The important condition is that the overall contributions must fit within the needs and the scope of the endorsed project as originally outlined. Secondly, let's revisit the structure of the tax allowance. Companies are entitled to receive an allowance of equal to 150% of the actual expenditure incurred. And again, I keep saying this, up to a maximum of $1 million in a particular year of income. Importantly, this allotment can be made up of support from multiple projects. So a company can support one project, let's say for $500,000, and another project for $500,000 in the same calendar year. That's possible as well, right? And that's the information I want to share with you this evening. I don't want to go too long. I've already gone about 18 minutes. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time and attention.
This lovely land of my book, small but overwhelming.